I knew that was. Yeah, I haven't seen any of the.
The goal is a long-term average, and you know, a 30-year average. It's not very complicated. A much more complicated and tricky scientific. We've had a look at what are the drivers behind greenhouse gas emissions growth, and also what's likely to cause large growth in the future. And we were quite shocked to discover that there's an absolutely massive pipeline of liquefied natural gas projects around the world that would more than double LNG, liquefied natural gas capacity, by 2030. Would be far above where we need to be for the 1.5 degree pathway of the International Energy Agency. About 70% of the additional capacity that's planned is actually coming from North America. Countries in the developing world are building very large import capacity for liquefied natural gas. And what that's going to do is it will slow down the energy transition to renewable energy. Large amounts of liquefied natural gas at scale in Asia particularly will cause a go slow on renewable investment. So that's one of the big risks we see coming. It will not reduce emissions in the same way that the gas industry is claiming. There simply isn't enough coal to displace to do that. And in any way, countries should be moving directly from coal to renewables now.
It was true that a long time ago I felt that it could be a bridge fuel toward renewables, but I now believe it's a classic bridge to nowhere. And here's why. Even though the burning of methane gas produces only 50% of the CO2 per unit of energy compared to coal, only 2/3 compared to oil. Nevertheless, if there is leakage of methane, molecule for molecule, each methane molecule has 82.5 times the heat trapping power of a molecule of CO2. And when you work the math, a leakage of 2 to 3% of the methane completely negates the climate advantage of methane gas.
Where do you teach?
NYU has a DC campus.
Yeah.
And I teach journalism class.
The global conversation has changed. And what has changed about it is the recognition of how essential energy is to not just economic security, but national security. And I see that tone being echoed here in the United States. Because in this case, natural gas is not only essential for the survival of Ukraine, it can do a lot to address the world's carbon emissions. It can do a lot to bring people out of energy poverty. And here in the United States, we're blessed to have so much natural gas.
You know, the wealthy countries responding to the evil and cruel invasion of Ukraine by Putin have to avoid confusing the short term with the long term. That means avoid confusing the understandable necessity of backfilling the fossil fuel that Russia is withholding to blackmail the West. Sure, we understand that. But don't use that as an excuse or be fooled into using that as a reason to make long-term investments that lock in an even greater dependency on fossil fuels in the years forward.